Stephen here, and I'm with Adrian. Jason, once again, can't make it. He is in India, fast asleep, I assume. And I got some cool stuff to talk about today. And as always, we're going to start off with various community announcements. So, Mr. Adrian, you want to tell us what are the community announcements for this month?
Yeah, so we didn't have a monthly update contest this month, so we're doing one. We're updating on the one from last month, and we picked. So we picked. I don't know how to pronounce it. The Amolgagar had a couple of awesome. Oh, where'd it go? I lost the tab. Cool. Had a couple of awesome spells. This one's called Slingshot. There's not a GIF on here. I do say GIF. That I that might be a problem. And I have no idea how to pronounce this, so I'll just call it Terrace. And these are both pretty sweet. So we're gonna give that. So Amulgar will get an alpha key, which is, I guess, mostly a beta key. As we'll be releasing the beta next Friday. And the other thing that we had was the monthly, or we had a video contest to show off CodeSpells, and this Amolgagar also. Am I saying that right? I don't. How do you say this?
Okay. Your guess is what my guess would be.
Yeah. So Amolgagar also made this awesome video. You guys should go check it out. We'll have the link up. It's a great video. So Amolgagar will be receiving 2 keys for this month, which is awesome. Congratulations. And the other thing, this is just kind of slightly. So a lot of you on the forums probably know 711. I call him 711. That's how I read his name. So he made this awesome app which blends too well with my background. It's very confusing. But he made this awesome app that does a countdown to the next update. So if you guys get on the forums, you can download it, and it's pretty sweet. It opened Twitch automatically, which freaked me out because I was about to press start streaming, and then Twitch just opened up again. So because of the awesome stuff that 711 has done moderating the forums and this, we're also going to give 711 an extra alpha key to say thank you for all this cool stuff. Cool.
So,
yeah.
Actually, we've probably said this before, and I'm sure it's up on the web somewhere, but what is the official release date for the beta early access?
So the beta will be out as long as nothing explodes, which I don't. I'm hoping nothing will explode, obviously. The beta will be out next Friday. Is that? I need to. Yep.
Yes.
Next Friday, so June 12th. And we are also hoping to have it available on Steam Early Access. So it'll be we're calling it the Early Access Beta. We think of the version out in September as the Early Access version of the game, which will be a game that you can play and will be fully featured game, but there's still so much that we want to add to it that we're going to, in September, be full-on early access. So this is the early access beta. Yeah, does that make sense?
Right. Basically a decision. Yeah, a decision we made because we know what we release in September is sort of just the beginning. There are a lot of features we want to get to after that. You know, I mean, it's all on the Kickstarter timeline. We just wanted to make sure that people understand that even though it's a version that's coming out of beta, there's still a lot we want to do to it. So
yeah, we struggled
so the beta for the early access coming out on Friday.
Yeah, so we struggled a little bit with the naming of the September release. We were calling it the Sandbox on the creative mode, and we've just decided to call it the early access. And that way we can say, like, it will be a real game that is fun and playable, but after that we will be adding really cool features like the spell sharing, multiplayer, and life. And those things we think are super important for it to be a full game. But yeah, so we're calling it the early
Right.
access. It doesn't change anything, but the beta will be the early access beta. But that doesn't really mean anything other than a naming convention.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I think my Twitch has just unfrozen, so I can finally see the chat.
Cool.
So I'll be monitoring that now. And any more community announcements, or can we talk about water?
I think that's it. If there's anything else I'm missing, I'll bring it up later, or if 7-Eleven, if you wanted to bring that up in the chat, we can look at that. So I think that's it. Pretty sure that's all I had for right now.
Cool. Well, so basically, I'm going to let you kind of walk us through it, but just to give the high-level idea, basically, last month we released Water, and then we had sort of a I don't know, a kind of a crisis of faith where we decided the water wasn't fun enough and there wasn't enough you could do with it, and we, at the very least, wasn't as cool as Earth. And we want the elements to be, we want to take a stab at making them somewhat balanced so that you could, pick any one of them and have as much fun or power with that element. Yeah, so do you want to tell everyone essentially what prompted that crisis of faith and what we did about it, and then you're welcome to show off some of the cool stuff.
Yeah, so we decided to move in this direction of, we've talked about this for a while, where we said that we want the game to be about creating games. Like, we could make all the content and fill it in, but part of the beauty of giving people the ability to program is that allows people to make content, and people as a whole will be able to make cooler content than we can make, and people can make their own content to fit whatever they like. So we wanted to show this off for the beta with something that we're going to call these mini games meditations. That's kind of what we're calling it now. I'm not sure if we'll stick to that, but the three of us like it. So we're calling them meditations, and we made a couple of meditations to show off Earth magic, and they're pretty fun. They're very simple and silly. I'll show this off later, but we started making meditations for water, and they were really, really boring. We couldn't really come up with fun stuff to do with water, so we like Steven said, we just decided to shift in a completely. We wanted to add more features to the water for a long time, but we felt like it wasn't at a high enough bar. So instead of doing fire and air, we shifted to doing just getting earth and water and some meditations done for the beta to really show off those two features pretty well at a more advanced state than we originally wanted to, but just so that we can show off how the game works. So I will start. I guess I'll go into. I can go in here for a second. This is kind of cool.
And I'll speak on behalf of Jason here, who would normally talk about the lore. We're not exactly sure how yet, but these meditations will fit into the lore of CodeSpells somehow, and that wizards create these sort of meditations as part of training, or just as an art form. It's part of their culture.
Yeah.
As being a wizard, one makes and participates in these meditations.
Yeah, we were talking about them as like poems or books. Like they're these things that are passed along like as a form of literature. Also, you saw the Death Star go by. Jason added a cool planet back there. It's not a Death Star. do not want to
Wait,
get
I didn't
sued.
see it. I missed it.
The planet, yeah, I just scrolled up there. Also, this is a fantastic description. When making games, it is incredibly important to have fantastic descriptions when you're doing a first pass. So anyway, I'm going to start this. Hopefully things go okay. All of this looks very similar, but if I start doing some water stuff, water might evaporate a little quickly over here, but the main thing you can start to see is that the water has a flow direction that actually corresponds to the way it's moving. So it doesn't leave any like weird artifacts around, and it all moves much more like a collection of pieces. Like it moves much more like a fluid. So if we follow it, you can actually see before it would just go down the path of least resistance, I suppose. But if we come over here, you can see that it actually climbs up this rock a little bit, and then it goes back down because it has a velocity. It's also evaporating, that's why it's disappearing. But it moves much more naturally. It's a little hard to see here because it's not really pushing anything, but just this adds so much more stuff to do with the water. We can see.
So basically,
yeah.
what you've done is given the water a more robust physics. Before,
Yeah.
basically the only thing it did was flow downhill.
Yeah.
Now it actually kind of picks up speed, has an inertia, can be pushed by other forces. Is that so?
Yeah. So I think the biggest difference is just that it has a velocity and it has a direction. Before, the way it worked is it would just go, each water cell or each area with water would just go downhill, basically. So the amount of water would be conserved, but there'd never be any velocity to it. So it couldn't really push objects or do anything like that. I don't have any objects in here that I can push around with the water. I haven't activated these yet. But it allows us, having a flow direction for the water allows us to push objects and the player with it as well. So I'm going to shift over to...
Right, so this is something entirely new. Like the water we showed off last time, although maybe looked superficially similar to this water, didn't actually do anything. It didn't interact with anything except the terrain. I mean,
Yeah,
it could fill in areas in the terrain, but it couldn't push anything else.
It could make you swim, but it didn't really add anything that interesting. I don't think these are... No, I don't think I added the... These don't have buoyancy activated, so they won't react to the water, which is a little disappointing. I should have gone through and done that. Sorry.
So you're loading up a meditation here, actually.
Yeah, so I loaded up another one, but those rocks weren't set to allow for buoyancy, so I tried to go away from the script, which is never a good thing when doing demos. So this is a meditation. This is a meditation. Oh, I guess no one's ever seen a meditation. This is a meditation. You can see that there's, at the top it says time passed and the boulders in the ring, and there's also water flowing at me. The water does not push me. At one point I had it pushing really hard and it was so frustrating. So that's something that will allow changing by meditation. But you can see that down here water is starting to fill up. There's humidity going on here, or there's heat evaporating the water, which is, I should turn off for this meditation. I just forgot to do that because I'm just forgetting to do everything for this update. But I can just add more water and cheat, and you can see that the rocks down there are starting to float.
Oh, that is awesome.
And in this meditation, if the water wasn't evaporating, this would slowly fill up. And then the second that those rocks hit this upper ring, the boulders in ring counter would drop, and then eventually I would lose if I lost all the boulders. It's a very simple thing. I can actually just trigger it by pulling these, unless I also deactivated that, which is quite possible.
But so basically, you want to
You want
You want to keep the boulders from getting out.
Yeah,
and
so you want to stop the boulders from getting to the top. So in this meditation, I'll probably turn off rock manipulation so that you can't alter the rock layer. But you could set spells to try to hold them down. So you could make a pin spell like we have in Earth Magic. You could try to pin them down so that they don't float any with the water rising. But the second that those get released, it'll pop back up. So there's a lot of cool stuff you could do with it. These are also ridiculously. This is like super like it's just like styrofoam. Yeah, it's styrofoam, but I feel like styrofoam. Maybe I'm.
So in this particular meditation, the water. So you said it's slightly broken, but the idea is that the water would be kind of gushing down, and you would be trying to stop the water.
Yeah, exactly. So the water, if it wasn't evaporating, would be flowing down much faster and filling up this container down here, and those would rise to the top. And the second that all three rise to the top, I'll just force it. I don't know what lift object 2 is.
And so, how would one stop the water that's coming down though in this particular one?
So, yeah. So I lost the meditation. I survived for 2 minutes, which is not very impressive considering that nothing was really happening. But I can retry it. I'll show you as the water first comes down before it hits the point that's evaporating very quickly. It's pretty cool to see the water flowing. So it doesn't start flowing until I start, but once I start the game, you can see the water start flowing down, and it creates this
fantastic.
It creates this cool wave at the front of it that you can kind of see, and that would push objects pretty substantially. But yeah, so if I did want to stop this, I can stop it up here. I can use spells. I can part the water, and what that does is it pushes water away from it. So it just goes forward and it pushes water away from it, which is not good for that water on the left. Cool. But it actually pushes it and applies a velocity to it. So it actually does like a really cool. It creates a cool effect once there's a lot of water going on. You can also create a little bubble by doing stop water, and that'll just push water around you. So while this is active, we'll have to show some sort of ring around it so that you can see that it's doing it, but it pushes all the water away from you, and you can see that it's not immediate, like it actually does disperse it outward, and while it's dispersing, you can see the directions change. You can see the flow change. So if we had like a couple of rocks, I wish I could. Part of the thing about this meditation is that I can't get the rocks out of that thing to mess around with them up here. So I should have left some out here. I had the buoyancy script on them. But anyway, it creates this cool thing where you can push objects. The cleanup crew, the cleanup one that I showed you before, where there were a bunch of blocks lying around, the point of that one is to throw all the blocks into like a region. And the fun part about that is that you can decide to write a cool push spell that like grabs everything and kind of throws it in there, or you can decide to like bring up the water and then push the water in that direction to kind of drag all the rocks in and stuff. So hopefully the water will end up being a lot more fun than it was before. But it's definitely a lot more interesting to mess around with, and yeah.
Yeah, that bubble spell actually just gives me goosebumps. It's just really cool looking.
Yeah, I
like that. Can you do that again? Can you just like part some water again?
I'm gonna part this water. It's kind of.
Oh my god, that's so awesome.
I'll do a little bubble right here. Right.
Oh, that is so cool.
We're protected.
No. Oh man, yeah, that is really cool. I want to build like a castle in the middle of an ocean.
Yeah.
But the water is like magically like pushed away from it.
Yeah. Yeah, you can do that kind of, kind of. But yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm
So
still
right.
I'm still like trying to like find bugs in this. I keep catching myself like staring at the water to see if something is breaking. Um, but it seems to be working pretty well. There's some seams there that we need to fix, which I think I have a solution for. I have a solution for it. I just haven't had time to implement it. I also think it's really funny that the foliage simulation is running. I didn't even notice that before. Um,
Oh, is it making? It's actually growing plants.
yeah, I forgot to turn that. I mean, I guess it's fine for this, but you can see like under this water, like if I push the water away, there's no plants, but the second I push it away, plants start growing
Oh,
because
that's cool. That's cool. I didn't
humidity in this
notice that
region is
either.
high. The humidity in this region is very high, so it's kind of just creating plants over here. Also, I think it's doing, yeah. Anyway, some pretty sweet plants over here. Um,
Cool.
yeah, so that's water. We will have. Someone mentioned I want to walk on water. That'd be pretty cool. I do want to do a thing where you can change the buoyancy of objects, or at least, or change the density of water where you are. Um, so you could walk on water by changing the player's buoyancy. Should be interesting. I don't know how well that would work, or if that would be really confusing and frustrating. But anyway, we're going to add a lot more features to the water. We're probably not going to add too many more right now. For the beta, we'll probably stick to this, just polish this up and make some meditations out of it, just to show it off and show what we want to achieve by the idea of meditations.
Somebody on the
sorry.
chat asked. We're not quite taking questions yet, but I just wanted to
Yeah.
mark it for later. But somebody in the chat asked about the tools for making meditation, so let's definitely come back to that.
Yeah,
but actually,
totally.
are there a couple other meditations we can show off just to give people another idea?
Yeah. So I like this one. This one's pretty fun. You can play around for a little bit. Everyone can just watch me play games. Seems like a good. I guess that's what people do on Twitch. That is actually what people do on Twitch. So
That's true. That's true. And I remember you telling me these meditations were actually fairly easy, at least for you to create.
Yeah, they were super quick. So this is actually has a description. So there's these things down here that are orb suppression fields. So any orb that tries to go in there gets destroyed, or if you try to cast an orb in those, they get destroyed. We'll obviously have to have better feedback / if you're inside it, you probably just shouldn't let you because it's really annoying to like have a spell and then like, yeah, anyway. So boulders are falling from that top orb suppression field. Once 10, so you can see have ring health at the top. Once 10 go through that bottom ring, then I lose. So it's a matter of trying to stop them. You can kind of tell that they get more red as they go, and then once they've been going for a long time, they destroy themselves. Right now it doesn't seem very hard, but as more and more, yeah, when I turn around, you'll see that there's a bunch coming down now. Also, I think I might have altered the terrain here a little bit so that they don't roll perfectly into there. So yes, I'm just gonna watch these go and see how long they actually take without doing anything. This was.
I think you're gonna lose.
This took me like.
I just want to point that out.
Yeah, there's an annoying little dip right here in the terrain that's driving me crazy. That should not be there. Here.
Oh, are you gonna fix it?
I don't know if I can, because there's an orb suppression field. Maybe that'll help.
Right.
I want to lose. Yeah, at some point, Jason or I must have accidentally altered the terrain a little bit because they used to roll nicely into this. But anyway.
So can you use the terrain to redirect the boulders? I mean, is that the right answer? Or
in this one, I was thinking we should just make it so that it's incredibly expensive. So each meditation can have its own costs and allowed blocks. So we could disallow it, or we could just make it super expensive to cast any spell that has the change rock in it.
Sweet.
But yeah, so this took me a couple of hours, and each one is faster to build just because while making them, I'm making tools that we can reuse. So the idea is to eventually make it so that people can program all the rules for these levels. So we're not exactly sure how the level editor, in quotes, will work. We actually like the idea of you just running around as a wizard and terraforming and doing everything in game and then saving it out. And then giving you more tools as the character to be able to more easily affect the terrain and shape it. We also want to have a tool for like importing height maps so that you have a good base, so you don't have to terraform something completely. So you can draw a height map externally or build a height map in CodeSpells procedurally and then start with that, and then start editing it in game.
What about placing things like the trees or the orb suppression fields or the rings or the boulders
so
or whatever?
those things we're not entirely sure yet. We want to have some interface with fire magic for creating objects, so we were thinking of just making it so that you can just create those objects and place them like you would any other object, like a boulder. But we haven't decided exactly on that interface. We might end up making a level editor just because it's easier. In terms of grass and trees and stuff, we actually want those to happen naturally based on how you set up like the heat of the level and stuff like that. We have a concept or a design concept for how to place trees that we need to iterate on, but these were just placed by Jason. But we would like them to happen naturally also. So most of the time you wouldn't worry about those visuals. If you wanted to edit them, you would edit them indirectly, like saying you would add water and stuff and then alter other variables. Eventually we might allow you to mod even deeper than that, but for now what we want to do is give you the tools to be able to make these meditations and then code internally, so you would be able to write this, like this ring up here. This is a super simple level where there's two orb suppression fields. There's a ring up there that's creating a prefab rock, which is these, and there's no reason. So we want to make it so that you can code that in JavaScript or Blockly. So that you could code that top ring. It creates these objects, and then based on how you built the level, they roll to the bottom. Then you add another trigger at the bottom, and that trigger goes back to the rules. So it's all built like that in Unity, so that it's super easy to make these in Unity. Building the interface for users to use it is going to be the big project, which we won't get done before the beta, but we do want to get that done pretty soon so that people can start making these game modes. So
yeah,
we like the idea of it feeling like you can play the game with Blockly and create these cool spells, and then you can delve deeper into it and make much more intricate systems in terms of creating level rules and stuff like that with either Blockly or JavaScript. So yeah, that's the idea now. We'll get to that hopefully soon. I'm not sure exactly when. Probably in the next couple of, I don't know. We have a plan for it. Haven't looked at it in a little bit, but yeah, that's the idea. We want these to be as easy as possible to make, so that someone can make something as simple as this, or they can make something as complicated as Skyrim, which would not be easy. We're not going to say that would be easy, but it should be possible to code your own things to fill in the gaps. I really like this meditation also.
Yeah.
So I'm going to share this one off. Hopefully there's not.
While that's loading, since
Yeah.
we are kind of in question taking time, although this isn't a question, I just wanted to comment on it because
Yeah.
it reminded me of something. So balancing the spell cost is going to be a pretty big part of future updates. I sense with my spidey senses. That is true, but actually the meditations are one, I think, nice solution to balance,
Yep.
which is we don't have to say, let's just take orb suppression fields for an example. Like, should orb suppression fields cost 200 mana? I don't know. And maybe the answer is it depends on the game you're playing.
Yeah,
it depends on if it's a wizard duel. It depends on if it's a, you're just playing a game where you're stopping rocks. Maybe there's not one number to attach to every spell. It's context dependent. And so that's definitely something that you'll be able to do per meditation. We've been calling them game modes, but I really, since I like the word meditation, I'll just start using those. So per meditation that you happen to be playing or building, these things can vary. So you get a lot of freedom, which I like.
Yeah, and for a while we were trying to balance them in a lot of ways. And there's certain things like teleporting the player, like setting the position of the player will break a lot of meditations. Like that would break a lot of game modes, and if that breaks your game mode, then you can just deactivate that specific thing. Or like in the other one I was saying that changing the rock could be there, only that it's incredibly expensive. So if you're surviving long enough to be able to alter the rock, then you're doing well. But it's just really expensive, so it just depends on the game mode. It gives it kind of offsets that so that we can build a lot of tools, and each game can balance those things individually. And we'll obviously come up with our own game modes and our own rules for what we think should be good default values. But again, it just depends on what it is you're doing.
So question, will there be a way to alter water, like turning it into ice or gas?
I don't know. We do have a design concept for ice that I really like. That kind of works backwards from real world ice, but the idea would be that ice can create this other layer underneath it. If the water is cold enough, it can start creating ice underneath it, so that creates this very slippery solid surface that starts forming underneath the water and growing up to the point where it can eventually completely encompass the ice, so that you can have water that flows on top of ice, or water that's still and very cold starts to accumulate up into ice. And that way you can create these like solid regions that are very slippery, which would be really fun. And to that, we were also thinking of adding shattering, which would create shards of glass, which would be physical objects that would be in the world, and then they would eventually melt and turn back into water that would contribute back to the water on the ground. But we're not going to do that just yet. I really like that concept. We haven't thought too much of steam or gas, but I think there is definitely options for that. We're trying to set up the project so that part of the thing about allowing meditations to set what is allowed and disallowed is that we can keep adding cool things. So we can just keep adding cool technical toys and just keep throwing them out there, and if they work for your game mode, you can pull them in. If in a few months we build something like ice, you can take that and put it in your game mode, and it'll just work, and it won't create any problems. If it doesn't work in your meditation or game mode, then you just don't add it. And the hope is that we can just keep pushing out cool ideas and cool little toys to add on to the different layers of magic, so that they become more and more fun to play with. So there's more and more stuff to do.
You had a concept for lava as well, right?
Yeah, and I also really want to bring sand back. I want to bring sand back, which would be actually very similar to ice technically speaking, which no one cares about. But yes, we have concepts for more fluids. Something like lava would be really cool because it would kind of be between fire and water magic, which would be really fun to play around with. I guess there's also a little bit of earth magic in there.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're basically trying to get to the point where we have a bare bones structure where there's enough little things to play with. And then for us, the game, instead of adding more levels to it, for us, once we get to that point, what we're doing is adding more toys that just kind of fit in, because like I said, we don't have to worry about them breaking or not, because if they break your meditation, you just don't use them in your meditation. So we have the luxury of being able to build all these tools, and then once we have that base structure, our content will be making more fun toys to play with per element, and eventually we can have really cool stuff like lava and ice and all this crazy stuff going on in the world. That should be really fun to play with.
Cool. Well, I promised I would keep us on schedule, but
yeah.
I guess I lied because we're already 7 minutes over. But I do want to see you destroy this temple.
Yeah, so this one's really cool because there's no time limit. It's just you have to destroy that thing with the least number of cast orbs, and I can't jump because if I do, I die. So I could teleport, but that wastes one orb, so it's kind of useless to teleport. I built a super crazy spell that would kind of do this crazy sweep outward, and if it missed, it would come back and try again. So I can make a spell that casts other spells, but I can only player cast. It counts how many spells the player casts, so you can build spells that create other spells, or create orbs that you can make an orb that creates other orbs, and that doesn't penalize you. So the ideal is to make a very fancy spell that kind of reacts to messing up. So this one might work okay. This is not going to work at all. Yeah, that is useless. So I'm just going to destroy this with the most inefficient thing ever, just because I'm...
Oh,
but
sweet.
You can see I'm using... Oh, shh. Okay. Well, I died, which is also bad. Also bad for this. But anyway, yeah, you can see the point. Once all the orbs are off, I can...
Once all the rocks are off? You gotta get the rocks off the platform, basically?
Yeah, so once all the rocks are off the platform, you win. In this case, I think changing the rock layer might cause some issues, so there's some
that's cool.
technical things I need to fix about this, but
this would be a lot of fun in multiplayer, I have to say. I think it'd be awesome to like try to break down each other's castle.
Yeah, I think it would be pretty fun. This is actually not as useful as I thought it would be. I thought it would really explode if I changed the rock, but anyway, it's a fun little mini game. Sorry, a meditation. Some physics glitches there. I did it in 48.
Did you win?
I did it in 2. Oh, there's one. They're still falling. It checks them. Oh. Yeah, so I did it using 48 orbs. I did it the other day with 2, which I was pretty proud of. So that'll be a fun
2 orbs, seriously?
Yeah, so awesome. I built this insane, I built this insane orb that I would shoot towards the middle and then I would activate it. So I shoot it towards the middle of the temple and then I activate the orb and it created this sweeping sprinkler type thing that would slowly push out orbs away from it.
Sweet.
And
Right.
to avoid wasting orbs, what it would do is if it didn't grab something along the way, it would come back, turn, and go back out. So they would kind of like, there's very little waste of mana, which was fun, but it was a fun example of why it's cool to have a little bit of a hybrid between having exact precision. So people have suggested with the orbs being able to set the exact location, and I like the idea of them having to be reactive. So like that I have to write some crazy spell that when for instance, so this is push circle, we'll do that. So I can write a really quick one right now called activate and push, and so we'll say on activate so it's a medium, that's fine. Make it 200. Let's make it 100 because I have a feeling I'm going to mess this up. Actually, how much does the push shield take? 40. So on activate, I will cast a push shield with 40 mana, and then I'll give this one 50 mana, and I'll also destroy this orb so that it doesn't get confused. So I'm going to cast this spell, and then when I click F, it'll activate the spell. That'll create a push shield at its location, and I'll push away. Actually, I want to push circle. Sorry. Yeah, whatever. It's fine. I'm wasting mana. So I shoot it in there, and then once it's at the point where I like it, I activate it, and it kind of pushes out. So you can imagine doing a much more complicated spell than that you activate at the right time. None of those actually hit, which is kind of... So you have to write some pretty smart spells to actually be able to hit stuff properly. But what I like about this is that there is imprecision, so it makes it so that your spells have to be reactive in this cool way. And it's kind of fun.
Yeah, I like that. That is awesome. Well, okay, it looks like the consensus in the chat is they like long videos. Definitely keep that in mind. Any other questions?
I
have one.
Yeah.
I have one, but I'll wait and see if there's anyone in the chat.
Yeah. Break the castle's fire. Oh, are they saying? I think someone was saying to break the castle I was in it. These blocks are too heavy to push. So you actually have to cast orbs to push it. It's not.
Well, I have a question about fire. Fire is my favorite element. I'm pretty sure I'm not alone on that. I know we promised fire for this month, and we got we had our crisis of faith with water. So what do you think now? What is the new milestone for showing off something fire related? When can we see something burn?
So right after the beta release. So for the beta release, we're focusing in on this, and there's several usability things that I wanna fix. But right after the beta, we'll move into fire stuff. So for the beta, it's too much. There is a lot of stuff in there already. I built this fire simulation, but it's not at a usable state yet. So I don't want to focus too much on that and then have it just not be very useful. So right after the beta, we'll transition to doing fire stuff, and that will be the third element, and then after that we'll do air magic.
Cool.
So yeah.
How about the spell shapes? Actually, I don't know what that means. what is your favorite food? I'll come back to the spell shapes if you want to
food
clarify.
okay.
But what is your favorite food, Mr. Adrian?
I don't know. I like a lot of food. I like gnocchi a lot. I'm a big fan of gnocchi.
Oh, that I just had that for the first time the other day. That was amazing.
Yeah, yeah, good gnocchi is delicious. So,
So there's a post of a link in the chat. I'm opening that now. Apparently it's a forum post. I know you watch the forums more closely than I do, so maybe you remember something about spell shapes. It's loading on my computer right now, which is for some reason insanely slow.
sorry, spell shapes.
Yeah, spell
Yeah, so
shapes.
I read about that on the forums. One of the things that we've talked a lot about is um, making air have a different interface than the other ones, than the other spells. I agree that there are some issues with making everything projectile based, um, but I also think that again the projectile having these spells be mostly projectile based, or for a lot of things, makes it so that there is this ability for the player to have a skill apart. So there's the skill of being able to aim properly and run around and jump like you would have in a first person shooter game or something like that. Like in Halo, everyone is pretty much the same except that your skills are your skills. So I like that there are skills apart from the programming,
Yeah.
especially because in the program you can compensate for those skills. So there's a little bit of tension, and it creates a cool balance of having action gameplay where you're not perfectly precise, um, along with having the ability to make your spells smarter. Um, so yes, I think there will be other interfaces for spells, at least for air magic. It's going to be a little bit different. Um, I don't know that water, earth, and fire will be that different, because I do like the way that they work right now, and I think that it could get pretty confusing if there were too many different interfaces for things. For air magic, we've said it before, we really want air magic to have a lot of sensing in it. So because of that, if there is a slightly different interface for it, it can allow you to do cool things like be able to understand the environment and feel things and do stuff like that. So
Cool.
I
I've got
yeah.
a couple more questions here. So I'd like to have a way to make awesome spells using as less eval as possible. What do you think? I'm pretty sure I can answer on behalf of Adrian because he complains about eval almost every day at our
Oh
meetings.
yeah. I wanna. I mean the goal is to get rid of eval. Um, the I mean the problem is, to be completely honest, the issue is that we don't have. Um, we are focusing on getting the core simulations done. So there's a lot of usability stuff on top that we haven't gotten to, and we're trying to get all the low stuff done as soon as possible. So we will definitely, you will not need to use eval at all once the game is done. And once there is stuff like air magic, for instance, you won't need to use eval to find croakers in the level. You'll use air magic to find out where croakers are, so that you can cast a spell that has some understanding of that. So once all the elements are done, we'll know where the holes are. But right now, we don't want to. We want to make sure that we're getting a first pass of everything done before we start going and fixing anything, because there's a lot of stuff that we don't know if it'll need fixing once all the elements are in. So eval will be there for people to mess with, just because why not? One day, we will make a nicer interface for it, so that you don't have to just put everything in a single line of nasty code. But eval will be there. The ideal is for you never to use eval. In fact, I imagine that 99% of meditations will not have the eval script in there. In eval, you can destroy things badly. Like you can, it's not as protected as it should be. But you can, I imagine you can quit the application. I've never tried it, but I think you could actually make the program quit and stuff. So that most meditations, particularly multiplayer ones, it will make no sense to have eval on it because you'll be able to break the game too easily, as it has no real restrictions. So we'll definitely phase it out, and then when you're making meditations, by default, eval will be turned off, and hopefully we can make it, we can get the game to the point that it's good enough that we just don't ever need eval. But like I said, it'll always be there. But we want solutions for things that people are doing on the forums. All of those things will have solutions in eval, even if they're not direct. Like, I don't think there will ever be a way of grabbing all of the objects in the world. And if it is, then it will have to be through some sort of interface, like Air Magic or something that has a system attached to it that you can alter the costs for, but you can't just completely. We don't want something in spells to have an omniscient understanding of the world. So everything will have systems to solve the problems in eval, even if you have to go around a few things and be clever about how to get to a solution. There will be ways to do it. But yeah, that's a very long and convoluted answer. I apologize. Sorry,
all right, well, we do have to wrap up, but let's run through the questions that are there now, and then let's wrap up. So let's see. Will LAN be done by the time of the release? Let's assume that's the September release, and I think the answer is no. The multiplayer comes after the first early access release,
yes.
Right?
Yeah. We're not going to work on multiplayer for right now. While building the systems, we're definitely taking into account. But we're not working on that yet. So multiplayer is not going to happen until well after September.
Will the JavaScript editor be done by the time of the release? I want to say that's also a no. Is that true?
By early access release?
Yeah.
So I don't know. We've talked a little bit about being able to create meditations for September. Our initial goal is to get that creation of meditations to a preliminary state done by September, which would include using JavaScript for creating meditations. JavaScript for creating spells is probably not going to happen for a very long time, if it does happen. So there's several big problems with being able to create spells with JavaScript that we need to figure out. So that's not going to happen anytime soon. So we want to make it so that you can create meditations through JavaScript. So if you do want to use JavaScript, you can use that to make the meditations, and hopefully one day we'll be able to solve the issues with creating spells with JavaScript, but for now that's kind of been pushed off until.
All right, I'm going to run through these. I'll answer them if I know the answers. What about an inventory? Will they be different weapons? It's a cool idea. I mean, we definitely have staves. And I don't know, actually.
That's
nifty.
A pretty cool idea, yeah. I don't know.
Yeah,
one thing that I don't like the idea of there being any sort of. I don't know. We don't want it to turn into people having swords and guns. Definitely not guns. Um, but if someone starts having a sword, it gets confusing. So
So
I think
the
there
answer is
will
maybe.
almost
Maybe.
always be staffs. Staffs might do different things, but most likely not anything other than staffs as weapons. I would say that everything will be staffs. Maybe we'll have staffs that do different things farther along, but for now, just staffs. Um, yeah. Someone did make a drone, that's true. Um, what was the other
Right,
thing I was
right.
going to say?
I mean,
Someone
everyone's.
asked about an inventory. We do have a design concept that we need to iterate on for creation of objects. We haven't finalized that yet, but we'll have details on that soon. We're probably not going to have a conventional inventory, um, but we will have a way for you to create and destroy objects in a pretty cool way so that you can, um, the way that we, so this isn't completely decided yet, but the way that we have it set up right now, at least in concept, is that there would be some slight element of resource collection, um, very simple resource collection, and then you'd have some way of recreating objects from the resources that you collect. There's a lot more details to it than that, but we'll have more details on that soon once we finalize the design more. So,
Right, and I did miss this from earlier, although I thought it was cool. Baxter mentioned modifying the physical stats of things like their color, their friction, mass, buoyancy, etc.
yes,
Um,
that will
and
definitely be the case. There, especially for the meditations, I really want there to be some very simple things where you can set like a primary color and a secondary color for every object. So that way you can, through the meditation, give feedback through the objects in the world. I kind of showed it off in one of the meditations. It wasn't super clear, um, but yeah, there will be ways of altering colors and stuff like that on objects. Um, Again, the details on that aren't finalized, but I, particularly with the water stuff and with mass and stuff like that, I think it would be really, really fun to be able to alter the mass of objects and stuff like that to say, like, I am going to make this object super light so that I can move it very easily. In most meditations, it should be very expensive to reduce the mass of an object, but it's actually a really cool combo to say, like, I want to push this large boulder, so I make a lower mass push spell, which reduces the mass temporarily, and then it pushes it, so it makes it go flying. All of that kind of
yeah,
stuff would be really fun. So I definitely think, or someone mentioned friction as well. That would be awesome. Um, Changing gravity would be pretty cool also. I don't know how that would work. I mean, for the entire world, it would probably work. Fluids might get a little bit nuts, but I actually don't know what would happen to the water if we changed gravity. In the real world, it would turn into cool little bubbles that floated. But anyway, hello. I don't know if you guys can hear me. Sorry, my headphones are acting up. Um, so, Stephen, can you hear me? Well, anyway, that is pretty much all we had. So I think that will probably wrap up for today. So yeah, thanks everyone for coming out and listening to us talk. So we'll have more stuff. Hopefully you can actually hear what I'm saying right now. If not, then I will get on the chat and talk about it. But we will uh, we'll be back next month, and keep an eye out for the beta. All right. Bye, everybody.